We're now on Daf Mem Hey Omid Beis, and we're trying to figure out why only a shomer chinam is potter if the animal goes out and damages. And the Gemara says that if you're going to assume we're going like Rabbi Meir, the Amar, Rabbi Meir's opinion in Bava Tzadi Hey, is that shomer sachar or a socher is kishomer chinam dami. That if a person rents something, since he's paying for rental, he's basically not getting anything for free, and therefore his level of shmira equals that of a shomer chinam. He's not being paid for a shmira; on the contrary, he's paying the owner, and therefore shmir pchusa, the lowest level of shmira, is sufficient. Is then listening, it should have said chutz mishomer chinam ve'asocher. Ve'ikar Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda later on in the Mishnah says that in a case of a muad, it's enough that you supply shmir pchusa. That was the famous paradox of Rabbi Meir, that a shomer chinam is chayav shmir ma'ula. I'm sorry, that a shar tam is chayav a shmir ma'ula, and a shar muad is dai b'shmir pchusa. Counterintuitive. The Omar. Well, Rabbi Yehuda also happens to hold that socher could also say socher dom. That a person who rents something has the same din as someone who is paid for a shmir because he gets the use of the animal. So once again, the kasha is the following. If we're going to interpret this brisa in light of Rabbi Yehuda, and then a muad is dailo b'shmir pchusa, and a shomer sachar or a socher requires shmir ma'ula, so the brisa says that a socher is chayav in dmei shor, but yet a shar muad, according to Rabbi Yehuda, only requires shmir pchusa. He provided shmir pchusa. So why in this case of muad do we say that the animal is killed, is stoned to death, and the bailim pay kofer? If shmir pchusa is enough, and therefore nisnei chutz mishomer chinam vekulon b'muadim, pturim linyan kofer. In the case of a sharmuad, if he provided a basic level of shmir pchusa according to Rabbi Yehudi's potter, why does he pay kofer? So the answer is, you're telling me, well, if he's a shomer chinam, he doesn't pay kofer. Well, the same din should apply to all the shomrim as far as a muad is concerned. There's no chiyuv to pay kofer because he gave and provided the shmir pchusa. That's all he was required to do. So the Gemara offers two answers to this question. The first answer is that of Rav Huna bar Chinina. Hamani, this brisa reflects the shita of Rabbi Eliezer. The Amar, he says that ein lo shmir lo v'saket. There's no level of shmir that you could provide that would be adequate, that would be sufficient in the case of a shar muad elasak and just shech the animal. And therefore, according to Rabbi Eliezer, the shomer machayev v'kofer, even though they provided a level of shmira, but that doesn't matter because Rabbi Eliezer says there's no level of shmira in a shor muad that's sufficient. Ule'inyan socher, and as far as the chiyuv of a socher to pay the domim to the Baal, Savrla, Ki Rabbi Yehuda di Omar Socher can also say Socher Dami, which means that he has to provide a Shmir Ma'ula. Abai Omar, second teretz. Li Olam, let's go back to original possibility of Ki Rabbi Meir, who holds that in the case of Muad, it's not enough to provide a shmir pchusa, you need a shmir ma'ula. And that's why they're all chayiv and kofer, because they provided a shmir pchusa, and Rabbi Meir ups the ante. It's not enough to have a shmir pchusa, you need a shmir ma'ula. You asked us a kasha, then the prices should have potted up even a socher for paying domim to Be'er Sholabailim. Because according to Rabbi Meir, his din is equal to that of a shomer chinam, and all he has to provide is shmir pchusa, which he did. So here we're going to have to say that Rabbi Meir is the one who holds that a socher has the din of a shomer socher, ukidamachlif Rabba Baravua vitani socher ketzad mishalem. Rabbi Meir omer kishomer socher, Rabbi Yehuda omer kishomer chinam. So indeed, it's Rabbi Meir who's the one who holds that a shomer socher is chayiv and shmir ma'ula. The brisa here reflects the shita Rabbi Meir, and a socher has to return the tmei ashor to the bailam because his din is that of shomer socher, and shmir pchusa is not sufficient. Amar Rabbi Lazar, Mosar Shorol Shomer Chinam, he's a chayiv pot, huzak pot. If the shor was given over to Shomer Chinam and it went out and he damaged, then the shomer has to pay the tashlum of the nezek. Huzak pot. In other words, what the Gemara is driving at here, as we'll soon see, is that what is the scope and the extent of Kabbalah Shmira? It's one thing to say that I was Makabal Shmira on an animal that shouldn't go out and damage. It's a whole nother ball game to say that I was Makabal Shmira with this chayvus, that if the animal was attacked by another shar, I'll have to pay for the shar that you gave me. And the Gemara says the following. Amri hechi dam. I'm sorry, wait just 1 second. If he had a Kabbalah Shmira and he accepted responsibility in a twofold way, not just for the shor to be mazik, but also the shor hezek, is afilu hosik nami chayav. Why does it say huzak potter? Ve'ida lo kibul alei shmiras nizakov. If the shomer says, I'm not in charge of nizakim at all, don't come to claim to me for nizakim, now afilu hizik nami liftar. The shomer should be potter because he officially made a statement that I'm not agreeing to protect the animal for going out and doing damages. In other words, he accepted upon himself responsibility that the animal should not go out and damage. But if the animal was damaged, he's potter. Why, if the animal was damaged, is he potter? He knew, the shomer, that he was accepting upon himself responsibility on a very belligerent, aggressive shore, and therefore, he was makabel for this aggressive shore, achrayus, responsibility that the shore would not go out and damage. But the low, but the it never occurred to him that the animal might be damaged by a more bullying, belligerent animal than this animal that he's watching. So he never entertained in his mind the idea of accepting damage for something that in a million years shouldn't have taken place. And this leads us to the Mishnah. Now, this Mishnah is referring to two psukim with regard to Shor Tam and Shor Muad that went out and damaged. The first pasuk with regard to Shor Tam, it says Chi Gov Shor Ish Eshori Eu Vames, etc. V'chasu is kaspa. With regard to Sharmud, it says in the very next pasuk, "Oh Noda, ki shar nagahu mitmol shilshav lo yishmeren bolav shal mishalim shor tachashor." And now the Mishnah wants to know what kind of a shmira do the Bailam have to provide for a shor tam and a Sharmud? That they have to pay compensation for the nezek if that shmira that they were obligated to provide was absent. Ksharo, Bailov b'mosera, Vinol b'fun of Karoi, the owner of the animal, tied up the animal with a mosera, which is a chevel. It's kind of a rubber kind of a mosera. Maybe we'll call it loosely a leash. Vinol b'fun of Karoi. He locked the gates in the way that a Ruach Mitsuya would not knock down the gate. And all this is basic Shmira, is Shmira Pchusa. Yotzav Hizik, Echad Tavi, Echad Muad, Chayav, Divrei Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir holds that whether you're talking about a short tam or short muad, providing a Shmir Pchusa for a Ruach Mitsuya is not sufficient, and he has to pay damages. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, this is the counterintuitive Rabbi Yehuda that we've spoken about in the past. Tam chayav muad potter. In the case of Tam, he's chayav to give a higher level of shmir. Let's say, for example, I own a short Tam and I give it to you to watch. Rabbi Yehuda holds you have to give it the maximum level of supervision of shmir. But muad potter, paradoxically, or counterintuitively, if I gave you a shara muad, you don't have to provide a shmir ma'ula. All you have to provide is a shmir pchusa shenema. We derive from sukkah. The lo yishmenu bala. In the case of a shara muad, the Torah says lo yishmerenu. That's why he has to pay shalom yishalim. So the chiyuv to pay is the chisar and shmira. So v'lo yishmenu means he provided zero shmira. But if he provided a minimum level of shmira, which is called shmira pchusa, shamru zeh, that's considered shmira, and for shara muad, the Torah says that's sufficient. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, ein lo shmira elo b'sak. If you have a shara muad, you have to kill the shar. And even if you provide the greatest shmira, the highest level, shmira ma'ula, if it went out in damages, you have to pay those damages to the nisa. So Rabbi Meir is the most mekil, allowing in both shar tam shar muad a shmira pchusa. On the other extreme, we have Rabbi Eliezer who says no level of shmira is sufficient in the case of a muad, and in the middle we have Rabbi Yehuda, who differentiates between a shar tam and a shar muad. In which case, just the opposite of our intuition. In the case of a shar tam, he will be required to provide a shmir ma'ula, whereas in the case of a shar muad, it's sufficient that he provides a shmir pchusa. And now we go to the Gemara. My timer, the Rabbi Meir. Why does Rabbi Meir hold it both in the case of shor tam shor muad? You need shmir ma'ula, because savar he holds stam shor lav v'cheskes shimur kaimi, that a shor in its natural state is dangerous. I'm sorry, cheskes shimur kaimi, not lav v'cheskes shimur. Oh no, lav v'cheskes shimur kaimi means that what? So Rashi is going to come to our rescue here, and Rashi says lav v'cheskes shimur kaim means that people normally do not provide shmir on a shor. They don't anticipate the shor will belligerently go out and attack. V'yomer achmana, and the Torah says in the case of a shor tam, nichayev has to pay. That indicates that the Torah is upgrading from 0 to the lowest level of shmir, and iboyle shmir pchusa. But then Hadar Amar Achmanav Lo Yishmerenu Ba'alav, meaning adding another level of shmira with regard to a shar muad, is the boile shmir ma'ula. From shmir pchusa we go up one notch to shmira ma'ula, and then yolif negicha litam and negicha lemuad, we equate tam and muad, and even a shar tam requires shmira ma'ula. Rabbi Yehuda Savas Tam Shvar Becheskes Shimui Kaimi means people usually watch this shar. V'Yam Rachmana Tam Nishalem, it means we're upgrading the story of a shar tam. Dini Baile Shmir Ma'ula to the second level Shmir V'Hadar Rachmana V'Lo Yishmenu L'Gabi Muad did Navid Le Shmir Ma'ula. So now at this point, if we freeze the frame, then both shar tam and shar muad would require shmira ma'ula, the highest level shmira. Even from Ruach Sheni Mitzuya, nothing less would suffice. But what happens here? Havi ribui achar ribui, v'ein ribui achar ribui el l'mayit. V'ein hakosel l'shmir ma'ula. So what's happening here is that the Torah, in the case of Shar Muad, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is adding, I should say, is duplicating what we know already by the case of a Shar Tam. We've already derived from a Shar Tam by combining Stam Shvarim, Becheskes Shimur Taima with the pasuk of Shalem Yishalem, and that upgrades the Chiyuv Shmir to Shmir Ma'ula. Now we should apply the same yardstick to Shar Muad. But yet in Shar Muad, the Torah says, V'lo Yishmerenu. You didn't do an adequate shmira. So that would seem to indicate that Shar Muad requires a higher level of shmira. But we've already established that in the case of Shar Tam, you have to require the highest level. So we're going to apply the principle of Ribui Achar Ribui L'mayit. And the miyud is that in the case of Shar Muad, miyud hakasav l'shmira ma'ula. The Torah says you don't have to provide a shmir ma'ula in the case of a Shar Muad. V'chi tema. And if you'll raise the following objection, that after we derive that a shar tam requires shmir ma'ula, is we should apply gzeira shava of negicha legabi tam, negicha legabi muad, and equate muad with a shar tam, and the Gemara answers hamiyat rachmana v'lo yishmeren. And v'lo yishmeren is a miyat, implying that all you need, and it suffices to have a shmir pchusa lazeh for the muad, v'lo le'acher letam. So Gemara asks the following question about miboy leila lav. How is it possible that you derive a high level of shmira, required shmira ma'ula, from the pasuk of v'lo yishmerenu? V'lo yishmerenu is a lav. So you cannot use v'lo yishmerenu as a ribui and then say ein ribui achar ribui l'mayit. It's not a ribui. It's only coming to introduce a lav. So the Gemara answers him Cain, if the pasuk is only interested in a lav, is nichel rachmana v'lo yishma. The Torah didn't have to add the yishmerenu, my v'lo yishmerenu, and that's going to be a miyut achar miyut. Only in a Shar Muad are we going to apply this miyut and lower the level of shmira to shmira pchusa. But in Tam, you still require shmira ma'ud. Now we have another shita. Tanya, Rabbi Eliezer and Yaakov Omer, Echad Tam v'Echad Muad sheshamru b'alav shmira pchusa pot. This we never had before. That shmir pchus is enough in all cases, shar tam and shar muad, and he's pot. My timer. He is a combination theory, a hybrid. On the one hand, savarlak Rabbi Yehuda diamar muad b'shmir pchusa sagile. So in a case of shar muad, Rabbi Yehuda already established that all you need is the basic level of shmir. V'yolef Rabbi Eliezer and Yaakov holds gzeira shava negicha legabi tam negicha legabi muad, and therefore even in the case of shar tam, all you need is shmir pchusa. Amrav Hadabar Avalo Potter Rabbi Yehuda Ela Ad Hadosh Shebo. When Rabbi Yehuda said that that a sharmuad is potter through shmir pchusa, that's only for the tzad hadosh shebo. In other words, the increment between tam and muad. Avol tzad tamus is tamus b'mkoma omedus, and therefore the shmir pchusa is not going to pater up from the tzad tam. So the chatzi nezek of tam he will have to pay because he was poshay, didn't provide a shmir ma'ula. But as far as the increment from tam to muad, the second half, then we would say that all he needs is shmir pchusa. Amar Rav, muad lekeren yamin, eno muad lekeren small. If the animal consistently is no gap from the left side, he's not considered muad for the right side, or the right side for the left side. Amri, the Gemara clarifies, I'll leave it to man. According to which of the following two shitas did Rav state his opinion? I'll leave it to Rabbi Meir, Omar, Echad Tam, Echad Muad, Shmir Ma'ula Boy. Rabbi Meir ups the ante, requiring a Shmir Ma'ula for both Shar Tam and Muad. So even though we didn't really anticipate that the animal would be no gap from the left side, but nevertheless, a shmir ma'ula requires you to protect even an unusual kind of negicha from the left side. The iyal libe the Rabbi Yehuda. So Rav is telling me now that according to Rabbi Yehuda, you could have one single shar, but yet it's a schizophrenic, and you have two different levels of shmir that have to be provided. So therefore, he provides a shmir pchusa, and then the animal goes out and gores with its right side, and it became a muad on its right side. Then for the extra half a nezek, as a muad, you're potter, because you provide a shmir pchusa. Had it been nogech on the left side, you'd be chayev chatzi nezek, because for a tam, and the tzad tamas from komomes, it's not sufficient to provide a shmir pchusa. So Gmersim came, is my area keren small? I feel the keren yamin. Now is be tzad tamus, is be tzad muadas. Because tzad tamus from komomedes, and even with that one keren, whether it's yamin or small, depending upon the animal, we're going to make him pay a chatzi nezek for the tzad tamus shabbat, because shmir pchusa is not enough for a tam. Amri, the Gemara answers, Liolam Rav holds Rabbi Yehuda, and tam requires a shmir mu'ula. Mu'ad is sufficient with a shmir pchusa. V'lo sfirolo Rabbi Adavar Ava, who holds tzad tamus b'mkomo betzochi kamara. Ki hai gavna. When it was a keren achas, it was tama, a tam. And on the other keren, it's muedes. Is ki hai gavna hu demishkachas be sad tamus muedes. So he provided shmir pchusa. The animal was masig with its keren yaminis. He spotted completely. Because Rabbi Yehuda holds that as far as a muad is concerned, it's enough that you provide a shmir pchusa. If on the other hand it was mazik with its left side, then it's a short tam, and you pay chatzi nezek like a short tam. Avol muad on the top of memvav legamre lo mishkachas be sad tamas kla. If, let's say, the animal was muad for both the left and the right chronos, then we don't have a tzad tamas at all. And therefore, nechayvol has zeko chatzi nezek, Why? Because tzad tamus eino meres b'mkoma. And this leads us to the end of Daf Memvav, which is the end of the fourth parak, if I'm not mistaken, because Shoshan Okas is the fifth parak. Okay, then. So let me wish you a good night, and thank you very much.